of both shows. And yeah, we've both watched NXT now, haven't we, Gar?
Yeah, I watched that this morning. We both watched. We did a live stream last night for AEW. So if you would like to watch those kind of things in the future, you can subscribe here, and you can also check out everything else we do on the podcast side of things. I'm assuming in the description.
It's all just there on the frame. Everything's there. You
Yeah,
can
yeah,
you can everything's in the frame. We will start to do that, but all that sort of stuff. Regardless, now
yeah,
NXT is the one we haven't talked about. Because we decided to watch Dynamite instead last night. So,
yeah.
what are your overall feelings after watching it?
Um, yeah. It's interesting that they've gone down the road of, um, I guess, doing the takeover matches on TV, um, without the crowd, rather than kind of trying to hang on for them because obviously we don't know how long that's all going to last. So I guess it makes sense, but it's an interesting and weird kind of dynamic because they haven't quite. I don't know what it is, but they haven't quite got the atmosphere that WrestleMania had. Even though that was still without the crowd, it still felt like it was a bigger show for whatever reason. And these kind of don't. I don't know if that's because there's only two. Well, there are only two matches. Well, there are three, but one of them doesn't matter. Only two big matches anyway on it, so maybe it's something to do with that. But yeah, it's kind of a weird thing watching them. Um, and obviously we had the ladder match between six women. I forget everyone who was in it, but if you're watching this, you probably know who was in it. And then we also had Gargano versus Ciampa in it. Cinematic matches, not quite as I guess weird or groundbreaking in that cinematic way as the ones at WrestleMania, but um, kind of a mix between what Orton and Edge was, and then similar also to the Boneyard match in the way it was shot. Um, but yeah, it was a weird one. Like I haven't quite got my head around how I felt about it yet.
Um, okay, that's cool. No faders. I like. I I thoroughly enjoyed the imagery and the cinematography going throughout the match. I thought the match was long. For some
Yeah,
reason, it's funny that given that they have the ability to edit their shows, they're taped, so they're able to manipulate
yeah.
it in any sort of way. I want to say that this match was bordering around 40 minutes, everything
I
in
think
total.
I think it was. I've seen some people say it was like 48 minutes on the thing on the BT thing. It was not yeah BT. That's what I watched on. It was 43 minutes, the segment was. So
Mm.
the match overall was about 40 minutes, I think. But I've seen some people say 48 minutes. So I don't know where that's come from. But yeah.
But regardless, what you have there is a 40-minute match, cinematic match, which is all well and good, but at the end of the day, a lot of it was fairly slow. It wasn't as slow as Edge and Randy Orton, um, but I think
Yeah.
we've gotten used to the cinematic sort of feel now, and this was sort of an opportunity. You've got two great stars, you can nail it down. It can be not. It doesn't have to be humongously fast paced. They haven't got a crowd. They haven't really got to deal with that, I guess. But regardless, they
Yeah.
could have. I feel that it was very slow. A lot of the chatting between Gargano and Champa. Normally I'm a decent fan of speaking out and getting the characters
Yeah.
across, but a lot of the time it was the same stuff for about half hour. So it was like,
Yeah.
end this. We're ending this here. We're gonna end this. Oh, we're gonna end this over there. We're gonna end this. I'm gonna end this. Oh, I'm gonna end this. I was like, look, just end
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Just end it. Just like,
Yeah.
just get to it. It's a lot of saying and not doing, essentially.
Yeah.
And in this kind of feud, at the end of the day, with the heat that they've built and the story between it, they can't get their hands off one another, but they seem to be more intent on telling each other they're going to kill each other than actually killing each other.
Yeah.
Um, so it's fine. It's fine. It's just I would have just less of the saying, more of the doing, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm in complete agreement with that because at first I was like, for maybe the first 10 minutes of it, I was like, oh, this is good. They're really getting their characters across, and I'm really kind of understanding. This isn't necessarily something which is a super intricate story. It's just something of those. Obviously, the overall story from the very start is, but where they are right now, it's just about kind of killing each other. But then it just kind of became. I was like, after they got that message over, they kind of just kept going the entire match with that, and it's just like, yeah, it was like I did prefer it to or I preferred this, like the middle section. I'm going to compare it a lot to the Edge Orton match because I think they're quite a lot of similarities. But the middle section I did prefer in this match just because there was at least, even if it was repetitive, there was more of that character coming across. Whereas in the Edge Orton match, I felt like they were just like they were the other side, and I'd rather have overkill of character than no character, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But I feel like you need both matches could have done better from striking that balance somewhere, and also being trimmed down by 10, 15 minutes. Both of them, I think, would have benefited from that.
Oh, Justin Alba, absolute legend. It is good. How are you, man? Good to hear from you. Yeah, it's how can I? Yeah, that's essentially it. It was just, I'm not gonna say it's a massive issue. It didn't really like cause any too much issue for me, but
Mm.
it was long. It
Yeah,
was. It
yeah,
was. It was longer than it needed to be. Um, and like with the Edge and Randy Orton, I think Edge and Randy Orton especially, that was especially long. This was less so,
yeah,
and it didn't feel as long. I put it this way,
yeah.
I was very surprised um for the means of me how I was watching it, and
Mm.
I paused just to sort myself out at that current time, and I looked to see how long was left, knowing this was the main event, and it still had half an
Yeah,
hour, and I was
yeah,
like, geez, they're gonna really like push this along and make this as long as it can be. So I just thought it was a bit long, but I thought it was much better in Randy Orton because I think what they did, if this makes any sense, was that they just stuck into two sort of areas. They went outside for a little bit, and then
yeah,
they just went back in. And don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of going through backstage and knocking one each other out because I think Gargano and Ciampa did a great job of that on an NXT episode a couple of weeks
yeah. Their
back.
brawl was brilliant. Yeah,
Yeah, but Edge and Randy Orton tried to somewhat achieve the same thing, but because it was slow paced and they went everywhere. It felt
yeah,
like and it was kind of hard to remember where they were. Whereas with this match, because they stuck to quite minimal locations and just made the most of what they could in each location, then it kind of made things just, at least from a memorable point of view, from me standing here now, I can just remember a lot more spots going on because I can picture the area and where they were going. Whereas,
yeah,
like, with the Edge and Randy Orton, and obviously, like you said, we're going to compare this because at the end of the day, it's a cinematic match, but it's still
yeah,
within the realms of a wrestling match, not just a
yeah.
brawl in a boneyard or in some psychological bloody house of some sorts.
Mm.
But
Yeah,
I thought I I thought it was coming along. I wish they didn't. This is me nitpicking, but I wish they didn't have Candice LeRae. I wish they didn't show us what Candice LeRae gave. Because
yeah,
it was obvious to me, like about 20 minutes in, that we hadn't seen that.
yeah,
Um, that I was just like, it's kind of obvious at this point now that Gargano. I thought it would be a cup when they did
yeah,
the spot where she kicked it, because I was like, that makes a lot of sense for her to kick her own husband, because in the day, face getting sick of her husband who's been an absolute prick, and it's this person that's driving her husband into just God knows what, so, do it. But I was like, she handed him
yeah,
something. It was fairly obvious, and that's nothing. It's nothing wrong in that. There's nothing wrong and obvious. But I guess I would have just
yeah,
preferred. I would have preferred. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't have made much impact, but made as much or less impact. But just seeing that she was given something, but not actually seeing what that something was. Like, I know we didn't exactly see it,
yeah, yeah,
but you could sort of picture what it would have been at the time. I don't know. But either way,
yeah.
I liked the turn. I really liked the turn,
Mm. I don't know.
but I'm unsure. Um, I love Candice to bits, like in terms of her
Yeah,
ability, everything. I think she's great. Um, but I don't know. It's like a Gargano thing where I don't know how she will be as a heel and how
Yeah,
but that's fine. Gargano is one leaps and bounds that I thought he would reach as a
yeah.
heel. So
I think he's more interesting now um, than he ever was, at least character wise, because he's kind of just he's. It feels like he's kind of freed himself,
yeah,
from from number one, the pressure of being everyone's favorite,
yeah.
and number two, just like being good. Like he does actually feel like he's kind of, I don't know. I don't really know what the word is, but you know what I mean. Like he just feels fresh and new, and it's just nice, really.
It is. I
Um,
what I liked at the end was his obsession with winning. It was just like his relief of knowing that he's got the better end of it. It felt like it came across like it meant something a whole lot more to him because you could hear him and the fact that
yeah,
he was still out of breath and Candice was helping him out, but he was like,
yeah,
and under his breath he was still saying I won, and like those little nuances I really enjoyed. Um, just now, but that ending for the Gargano Ciampa match felt like Vince Russo was bucking it. They should have been a definitive end to their feud because looks like they're probably going to have another match now. The heel turn screams lazy writing. Um, I, I don't know. I don't know if it screams lazy writing. I don't think it's because I think lazy writing would have probably have been just somewhat of a undefined finish and then not doing anything at all. I think that would have been somewhat lazy writing just to
hmm,
continue the same old, same old. Now we have something a little bit fresh and new. Yes, it is a bit the same old, but we've got an actual added little element to it because of Candice LeRae. And
yeah,
should it have been a definitive end to their feud? Absolutely. That was the whole point of this match.
yeah.
Um,
I think it is. Regardless,
I
like
think it was. Go
I
on.
don't think Champa's going to sit there and make excuses that Candice got involved. Like I do think they'll have another match, depending on how long they stay in NXT or what happens. I do think there's scope for another match a long way down the line, where it's like you kind of revisit and that will be a moment in itself. That will be a good few years away, but I don't think there'll be one anytime soon. I don't think there should be, unless they want to just do it like they wanted to get this done and then they want to do another one in front of a crowd. Like, I wasn't even sure I wanted this match just because, um, like even now I'm sitting here feeling like the story they told before with the other matches was so good. When they came into this one, they've never really it's never really felt justified. To me, it's always felt a bit. They're just doing this because they know it will kind of be a great match. Obviously, what we ended up with wasn't what they had anticipated. They obviously wanted this to blow off in front of a big crowd, but yeah. So I feel like a lot of the writing since the turns, even though some of it's been very good as well, a lot of it has kind of still been like Gargano still doesn't really have a real reason for turning in the first place. You can just throw it on to like jealousy or frustration that Gargano was on top, but then once you had Ciampa was on top, but then once you had Ciampa's injury and then Gargano went to win the championship, that no longer made sense. So the fact that they just reverted to the story they were going to do a year before, even though you'd had the whole thing with Ciampa's injury, so there's like things within this like that I've just not massively enjoyed within the feud, even though there have been good things like the brawl and Gargano's promo with Mauro Ranallo. Those things were really good, but like there's still that underlying thing of I don't feel like this match or feud is really justified. And that's I did feel there was this match was always destined to fail for that reason or under underwhelm is probably more the thing, and that's kind of the reaction I've got online is that it was fairly underwhelming.
Like I don't like. There were definitely some really good things to take away from it, in my opinion.
Oh
I
yeah,
really,
definitely.
I really enjoyed Gargano's performance in sort of dissecting Ciampa in a multitude of ways. So you have
Yeah.
physical, in how he was pointing out the various injuries that Ciampa's had, and
Yeah,
how he
there were
was
some really good
targeting,
bits like that.
and he was targeting those specific areas, and that I thought was really meticulous. It was like he was obviously just it was just really strong on Gargano's part, and just to actually communicate that to the
Yeah,
camera and just absolutely battering him in those areas was just it was so good. And then emotionally, because
yeah,
the whole the whole side of him taking the cup and getting hit in the gentleman's region by Candice LeRae, and the sort of that sort put Ciampa in a different sort of situation. Got really upset, was apologising, wanted to make amends at that point. He just felt like, yeah, this is just getting too much now. This is affecting all of the people
yeah,
around us and whatnot. You know, it's just like being a proper sort of like realising the situation as a whole, and then Candice getting that betrayal on him. I
yeah,
wouldn't say much of a betrayal, but like more of a turn.
yeah,
I think, and the way it affected Ciampa in that, and it's like Gargano was perfectly willing to just bend Ciampa in any
yeah,
shape or form to get that win. That's how much it meant to him. So I
yeah,
loved that. That was probably one of my favourite
yeah,
parts of this match as a whole. But as you've
yeah,
said, I think if we understood why that meant so much to him,
yeah,
I think then even you could love it even more. You could just justify it more. You could appreciate it
yeah,
more, because all we're seeing is a man who just wants to break another man, and he's communicating that very well and a very meaningful way. But we actually don't know why it's there. So I
yeah,
think yeah, I think the performance by each individual, except for the let's end it, like 10 minutes
yeah,
onwards, it was just like, look, mate,
yeah,
just get on with it and end it. Um,
yeah,
it just got tedious. That's all. I
yeah,
also liked Triple H's involvement to the beginning. I the imagery of seeing him on the chair in the corner of the ring. I don't know why, just the way it was just sort of filmed. It was just really appealing. Just really great to
yeah,
look at.
yeah. I agree on the Triple H thing, and like you said, like Gargano, I feel especially really got his character over really well. Ciampa kind of there was less kind of because he's the passive guy in this story. Gargano's the one kind of taking it to Ciampa. He's the one who did the turn in the first place, and Ciampa's kind of just reacting off Gargano. So
Mm,
he's always going to have less of an expressive character anyway.
yeah,
And I feel like he was the one who was kind of more samey throughout, whereas Gargano really suffered when he was being beaten, and then really enjoyed it when he was in control. And I think he played that perfectly.
mm,
Um, Whereas Champa again had it's not necessarily even his fault or anything, or even like the writing's fault, because you're always going to have in every story you're going to have a character that's slightly more interesting than the other, you know.
yeah,
And especially in wrestling, often the heel is the more interesting one. And I think that's kind of where some of the kind of tediousness of the Champa, particularly Champa being like, I'm going to win this now, I'm going to win this. I think that's part of where it comes from. But you know, you still don't need to just do that over and over again. Um, I forget where my point was going now. What did you say before this?
I just thoroughly enjoyed Gargano dissecting, all that stuff, the injuries, all that thing. Triple H getting involved. Not involved, obviously, but just he was
Yeah,
there. The way that he just introduced the match, I guess,
yeah,
was just it was really, really great. Like the tension when the door closed, when he said, "Yeah, when I leave this building, that's this starts." You know, and it's just
yeah,
like just those little nuances there and there was just really, really decent. I say
yeah,
decent, really, really great. It was generally really, really good. But oh yeah, on the whole, I just think you could have cut it down by 5-10 minutes, whether that's going at a quicker pace, what have you, you know, whatever. But yeah, it went along for fairly long time, and we all knew it was going to be somewhat of a long match anyway, a longer match than usual, because at the end of the day, it's
Yeah,
the two competitors involved. It's just an obvious thing.
yeah.
It was shot really, really cinematically and well lit, but the camera cuts felt Russo brothers action movie.
Um, yeah. Like l- part of me, or at times I did like the camera work, and at other times I was like, this is way too much. This is way too produced. Like, um, for what this needs to be. Like, I think that worked well for the Boneyard match because it was completely a cinematic piece. This is still very much a story which is supposed to be built in reality. So
Yeah.
I feel like more handheld stuff would have been good, and like the occasional bits of like cinematic shooting could have worked, particularly for moments like when I think Gargano reached out for Ciampa's hand and stuff, things like that, which are more, that was still handheld, but it's just zoomed in and it was focused. And moments where there were more emotion, think it would have been good to, like, when they were talking to each other, saying both apologizing to each other, the cameras kind of pulled back. And I think it would have been stronger if it had all been handheld, and then in those moments of emotion, they pulled it back a little bit. But in the end, it was kind of just quite random. They still nailed the kind of emotional bits, I think, in terms of the camera work. But yeah, it was a bit weird. I think it did kind of take away from the match, that kind of overuse of the cinematic stuff. I think it would have just been best to
No, I can understand that. I can get along with you in that.
really
We've
needed.
spent a large portion of this show going over that one match, which is a big deal regardless. And to be honest, it's probably one of the bigger deals
Yeah,
in on that Wednesday night. In all honesty,
there's
compared with both shows.
there's a couple more things I just wanted to say about it. I saw a tweet which I thought was interesting, more than I particularly agree or disagree with it. But it said, it's from a guy called Garrett Kidney, and it said Gargano versus Ciampa was everything wrong with modern NXT. Painfully long, self-indulgent, devoid of personality or character, overacted melodrama that's a parody of real storytelling. This used to be the show with most simple, satisfying, rewarding stories in wrestling. And I think there's a part of that which is true. I don't necessarily completely agree with it all, but it was definitely very different from their other matches and their feud before. And I think a lot of it now is it just comes down to the fact that, like, again, the logic at the very basic for this story wasn't there, and that's always going to have a knock-on effect for everything. And I do, particularly, it was like the kind of melodrama thing. I did feel it was a little bit melodramatic rather than, partly because of the way it was produced, partly because of um I don't know, a multitude of things really. But rather than like the real story that was at the heart of it. Um, but yeah,
No, that's fair.
and the other thing I wanted to say
Go.
was, uh, yeah, they did work me towards the end as well. Because when they were both apologizing to each other, I thought, oh, this is a great way to kind of have them just call the match off and not end it here, and then kind of whether they do a reunion of a DIY or what, and Run Without, or whether they just go their separate ways, but like they kind of make peace. Feel like, because it was, I thought the story of the match was, this is going to be a complete a travesty, and that would force them to look inside themselves and be like, actually, you know what, it's not worth it. But then obviously we ended up getting the Gargano turn, which moving forward, or not turn, but the Candice LeRae turn, moving forward is probably better and leaves you with more options. Is probably is the direction they want to go. But I did have a small part of hope in me, and I think that just goes to show how well Gargano played his role in this match. But yeah,
No, that's fair. I had a comment from Justin Alba. My brother and I were watching it together, and he counted about 7 cuts in 10 seconds. Well, if that were to be the case, then Gareth's point is very well made
yeah,
clear in that example, because I
yeah.
can
I
understand
think we're
how,
thinking of the same spot.
like, I can understand, like, given the location we were in, it was quite grungy, it was quite dark, it was quite like, and At one point, I was actually towards the beginning of the match. I was actually thinking, well, they're doing really well to hide all the cameras, given the amount of cameras that are in the room. But then, after like
Mm.
about 5 minutes, you started to see them all come around, and you started to see like four or so cameras, and they're like doing these ambitious shots and everything. And personally,
Yeah,
I, I just enjoyed the look of it. But I can understand certainly, and maybe on a second viewing, I would probably, if I was thinking about it more, maybe I would be more critical
yeah,
of the situation that
yeah,
we're in and if it's necessary to have that much of production involved. Um, but at the end of the day, it's yeah, I think the point is well made from both your points there. But moving on now because we've
yeah,
got quite a bit to go ahead with, and not a whole lot, but a
yeah,
little bit more. We had at the beginning of NXT, we had the ladder match. I think it was the 6 women featuring Shirai, Candice LeRae,
yeah,
Tegan Knox, Mia Yim, Dakota Kai, and Chelsea Green to become number one contender of NXT Women's Championship. And Io Shirai, who's just returned to NXT, she gets the win. She
yeah,
as she assumingly, given we've heard that Rhea Ripley will now not be featured on NXT in the near future, assumingly we're going to have an Io Shirai versus Charlotte match,
yeah,
which sounds really interesting. Both at
yeah,
least in WWE umbrella, probably one of the more top competitors in ring. Storytelling, I don't know what could go on there. It's a purely competitive thing at the moment. We'll have to wait and see on that front. But I think in an in-ring standpoint, I think
yeah,
we're in store for a great match going forward. Um,
yeah. It is a weird one because Charlotte, I feel like she's gonna if there if well happen in terms of crowd, but like everyone's looking at her now as like a top heel because number one she was a heel anyway, and now she's kind of taken the championship from Rhea Ripley, which most people are very unhappy about. And then Io Shirai is probably the top heel left on the NXT women's roster. So it's a weird dynamic for a WWE match. I don't know what they're going to do with it in terms of story that way, if they're just going to do a purely competitive match. That's why I was kind of hoping for maybe like a Candice LeRae or I don't know. And again, we don't know what the plans are with Charlotte in NXT, how long she's going to be there, how long she's going to hold the title, what's going to go on. But
well,
it was one that last week before WrestleMania happened, I was like, it'll probably be Io Shirai. And then Charlotte won, and so I was like, oh, maybe it'll be someone else then, just because of that. But obviously, they've still gone with it, so we'll have to wait and
well,
see, I guess.
I think the interesting thing in regards to Rhea Ripley losing the title, I think yes, on the surface that where it is, but I think what on the grander scheme of things, what it feels like on maybe the bigger picture is Charlotte's taken the NXT title away from NXT in a way, and the NXT sort
Yeah,
of fans,
yeah,
and I think that's probably a
yeah,
more given Rhea Ripley, she's not going to be around, given visa problems, pandemic, all that stuff that's been going around. I think
yeah,
that's probably a really interesting storyline to go with because I think the one time that people who really, really like Brock Lesnar was getting a real heel reaction was when they were going all in on the fact that he was turning his back entirely on the company, and that's when he truly got some heat. And I think
yeah,
Roman was in that program if I remember correctly, so at least that gave Roman's like he got more of a reaction from the crowd in that way. Yes, because
yeah,
of their rejection of Brock, but regardless, um,
yeah.
so I think it's like having
I think
NXT
Io
having a
Shirai.
go on.
I was just gonna say, I think Io Shirai will definitely be the one getting cheered, regardless of
Oh
how they
yeah,
play the story. Like she'll be getting cheered up. She pretty much does anyway, even though she's a heel. So yeah, I don't think they'll have an issue with that. It's just I'm more concerned about the story aspect. But they could just do a completely competitive thing, or they could do that thing of yes, I'm a heel, but I'm still representing the NXT brand, which they do generally hold more like
oh no, like that's not
every
my
wrestler in
point though.
NXT is more proud of being in NXT. No, no, I know, but like I was just going off like off what you said back to my point earlier. More so than
No,
other
like
places.
no, like but like what I was saying was what they can really go and hone in on. My assumption is coming from this is the fact that we've had Lorraine turn and Io Shirai heading into a situation undoubtedly will she be seen as the face. So you could probably assume weeks going ahead she probably
Yeah,
will be a face. She could absolutely still maintain this like character of hers, which she's a bit, let's call it that she's a bit mental and all that sort of stuff. Like you could still play that off and whatnot.
yeah,
But you just take the heel tendencies away from
yeah,
that, and it's not really going to feel all that much different. And to be honest, a lot of people cheer anyway. No bugger bloody um, boozer in
yeah,
that
exactly.
regards. So I think it's a strong one to get on with. It seems that Bianca's fully
Yeah,
within main roster from this point. Otherwise, she probably would have been involved in this. It's in some
yeah,
capacity. It goes to show.
yeah,
If you got like when she wasn't even in like the qualifiers, never mind. As far as I'm aware, I can't remember her being in the qualifiers match or something. Um, but yeah,
yeah,
it seems she's fully mixed in main roster now, which is all well and good. But that just means we're not going to get that sort of program with
yeah.
Charlotte, which had the seeds planted for that, which is a real shame. But there we are. Um,
Well, I think we could because I think the road I hope they go down basically is that Charlotte kind of doesn't always show up at NXT. Let's say quite rarely, even though the argument is that she's there to boost ratings. But let's just forget all that. Forget logic. Okay, this is what I want.
mhm.
So she's carrying it on Raw, which I think is actually a better thing because that then promotes NXT to the Raw audience. Then I don't think the NXT audience are gonna, or the people that they want to get in for NXT are going to tune in for Charlotte anyway. So um, that's me trying to put some logic to it where there kind of isn't any. But either way, so basically she does that. She takes on people like Io Shirai and she kind of beats them, and then she kind of makes all the NXT fans angry. This is kind of how you can use smarkiness against the smarks. You can kind of play it off and use the fact that she's beating all of your favorites to wind you up, and then you could have Bianca Belair then rekindle that on Raw, have Belair win it on a pay per view, and then bring it back to NXT, and she comes back to NXT. I don't know whether that's going to happen or not. But that is a story I would like to see play out. So, we'll have to wait and see, but
It is a very
I'd
much
be
wait and
interested in
see.
that.
The match itself was incredibly strong. Some of these spots involved, especially Chelsea Green, bloody hell. Like I know she
Yeah.
took
Yeah,
a couple
she
of rough
really impressed
falls.
me. This is definitely that was the best showing so far in NXT, I think.
Yeah, at least from my memory as well. We also, we had teasing of previous rivalries in with Shirai and Lorraine of the way it looked. I noticed as well the Candice's overall faceness, if that makes any sense, that was dialed down as well. She just came out and
Yeah, yeah.
she's very reserved. It wasn't very jumpy in her regular self. So obviously they
Yeah.
probably kept that in mind. She didn't want to probably, but I don't know. I think she could probably pull off the very overexcited, over smiley heel more so than just a bitch, just
Yeah, yeah.
that they all call each other. But like,
It's it's going to be interesting what they do with her now because we all said it about Johnny, but there was always that thing of because he never really had that much character as a face, um, that where do we go? But um, Candice has had so many moments and so many times where she's really shown, you know, just how nice and pure she is, and then we get this, and maybe it's just an alignment with her husband, and she'll remain face. But I feel like I don't know. It feels like if you're going to do something like that, it's got to be you've got to turn really.
yeah.
So
But really, I think it's fair enough to move on really quickly from NXT there because other than
yeah,
that, we had a Finn Balor sort of package addressing
yeah,
Walter, and that was
we had
just going over things that we'd had already seen in regards to NXT UK
yeah,
and his matches. We had some match involving Indus Sher, this new tag team of theirs, along with Everite.
Yeah.
Yeah, just largely um, not very interesting stuff, at least in my opinion, anyway. But moving on to AEW.
It's not big talking points.
No, definitely
Yeah.
not. Moving on to we've covered AEW. We did a live stream, but I think it's given
Yeah.
we've had some time to recuperate our thoughts on the things that we have seen. I think the real highlights of the show were Britt Baker and Hikaru Shida to begin with.
That was the best match of the show for sure, and definitely Britt Baker's best match so far. Hikaru Shida seems to have her best match with everyone. I'm happy Shida won, and then because she seems like the worthy number one contender at the moment. But I'm really enjoying Britt Baker at the moment as well. So it was just really good. There's not really much more to say than I really enjoyed it.
No, Britt Baker should have been knows, as I'm sure you would have seen, and
Yeah,
that looked insane, and she just kept going on as any wrestler would do. But to be fair, she looked wicked. It helped the match, even
yeah,
especially when they got to the submission, and you just saw that imagery of her giving that submission, but ultimately looking like she's in a hell of a pain herself. It was just really, really good. It was a really, really strong showing, and as you said, quite rightly,
yeah,
last night it was something along the lines of like you just feel like Hikaru Shida is bringing the best out of everyone that she's in the ring with.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and I think that is like ideal sort of champion material. But at the end of the day, it's not all about making everyone bloody champion. It's just a worthy
yeah,
contender, having her in that conversation. I think she hasn't lost. No, she did lose, but like I think it's like 6-1
I
or
think.
something ridiculous. Like it's something really ridiculous. Her win loss ratio.
Yeah.
Uh,
But her loss was in a tag team match.
no, there we are. So like they've
So
obviously
she's
protected
unbeaten
her.
in singles and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but other than that, we had Brody Lee take on a jobber essentially.
Yeah, Lee Johnson. Um yeah, no, it was the commentary on this was really funny. Chris Jericho was really funny. I remember that. But it
Yeah.
was kind of just similar to the Lance Archer squash jobber match. It's there because they haven't got a whole lot of talent to pick from, and it puts over their monster guys basically, and um, allows them to save some fresher matches to spread them out over the next few weeks because we don't know how long this is going to be dragged on for. So
No,
no, they were
exactly.
fine.
We also did have beforehand, just for some reason breezed over it. We had Best Friends taking on Kenny Omega and Michael Nakazawa. That, by large, was a great match. There was some really funny spots involving Nakazawa, as you would expect, but there was
Yeah,
some
yeah,
seeds planted for more tension between Omega and Hangman going forward, given the whole tag team naming thing. Given
yeah,
Omega, just like Omega's
yeah,
stance on him and Hangman as a team, just causing
yeah,
that sort of friction between the two. There's some obvious things you could have Hangman come out and question and just to tease that friction between the two. So that's all well and good. It was a great match and it was really funny, but it did have its important things there and there going forward. So, you can't not enjoy
yeah,
that, having achieved a fun match, but then a meaningful match in that as well, like somewhat meaningful, not all that much, but a little bit.
yeah.
And
It was
then
just a bit of fun, really. But
yeah,
yeah,
it was, and it was a lot of fun to be fair. And then our
yeah,
main event was Cody taking on Shawn Spears,
yeah.
the the first bout in this tournament for the TNT Championship.
No,
And
I did enjoy this match. I feel like I can't remember their match all out too well, which was more overbooked than this one. Um, but I feel like this just did a better job of showcasing both guys than that one did. I really liked the ending with Sean Spears kicking out of two crossroads and then getting pinned with a submission move, basically,
mm,
because it kind of protected Sean Spears in that way, and then also kind of allows Cody to number one keep. Cody's used the figure four for a while, but they're obviously putting shining a light on it. particularly recently. I think to build to the blood and guts, because that obviously only ends in submissions,
Yeah,
or giving up.
yeah.
So that's good as well. Obviously, he didn't win by Spears tapping out, but he won with that move, so that still helps get it. So I think it works, and like obviously a lot of people wanted Sean Spears to win to get that win back over on Cody, but I feel like this just hopefully can help Sean Spears move forward. He can take the rub of like kind of a good showing against Cody in a similar way to Darby Allin did, and hopefully run with that over the coming weeks. I don't know how much TV time he's going to get now, but I hope he does, because I think he showed here that he really does have something to give, and I just want to see more of it. Really, basically.
Absolutely, absolutely. Even when he was in the crowd, I was just sold on him. Just because, just
He's so good.
he's so good. He's just so full of energy. So he's full of charisma when he wants to be. It's amazing. I just wish I
Yeah.
saw more of that. You know, that's all. That's all I'm saying. You know, it's just, like, just wish I could see more of that. That's all. We
Yeah.
had a comment in from just now, but absolute legend. Thank you for commenting in for this episode. Quite often videos to you, man. Wish Britt Baker and Sheeta had a crowd would have been even better. We had another comment as well. We'll get to that in a second. I,
Mm.
we could say that for all matches, you know, at this point.
Yeah.
But it was a
I do think it
match.
would have been. I do think it would have been really good with the crowd, especially with them reacting to like the blood. I think in particular, but which obviously I don't think was planned. It looked like it was an accident, and then just kind of ended up really helping the match actually. But yeah, but like you said as well, Kieran, like we can say that for pretty much every match as well. We just kind of, I think at least with AEW, the thing, them using people at the ringside to kind of help create an atmosphere, I think is really good. It obviously can't replicate a crowd of thousands, but um, it is what it is at the time we are in at the moment.
Yeah, and the other comment from just now, but the ending was really unique because it made that submission credible instead of the move just to pop the crowd to say woo. And honestly, I was educated on this, that this was actually a method of pinning someone, and it has been in, you know, in the history
Yeah,
books and regarding Flair, of course, out of all people. But like,
yeah,
just yeah, and at first I was sort of questioning it only because I haven't seen it before. I've never seen anything, so I was just questioning as to my thoughts regarding it. Really,
yeah,
after having some time to think over it, I do agree with what Gareth said last
mm,
night. In that it was create, you know, they protected with the two crossroads, and they put him in a submission,
mm,
and regarding the pain that he's in already in, um,
yeah,
having not been focused regarding the
yeah,
referee calling the 3 count, kind of protected him in a way because
yeah,
it wasn't like, well, you know, it just seemed really creative, a little bit different, and protected him to some extent, and
yeah,
much, and you know, so all in all,
yeah,
it was really decent. You know, you can't really fault it, really. It was kind of obvious that Cody probably needed to. I wanted Sean Spears to win only because I just want to see more of him. That's purely it. Obviously doesn't have
yeah,
he doesn't have to win for you to see more. It's just a way in seeing
yeah,
more. So I would just like, if he did win, yeah, shame on Cody. But I've seen crap tons of Cody, and yeah, Cody's great. He's absolutely phenomenal, one of the best in the world. But if I get this opportunity to see someone new
mm,
who
yeah,
can offer so much more, then there we are. But I guess that's the beauty of AEW at the end of the day, because you've just got so many people, so many talented people, you
yeah.
know, and you just want to
And
see more.
I was, yeah, I was kind of in like similar thing. Like I want Cody to win the tournament, as I've said on the live stream for various reasons. But like with this match with Cody, I was happy with either outcome, because I was like, I either get to see more Spears or it's a step towards Cody. Either feud or that blow off match with Lance Archer, another match with Darby Allin, which I think would be really, really good and interesting, because they've always put on really good matches. So it seems like even when it's not my ideal thing with AEW, they've always got something else where I'm just like, that would be just as good. Maybe I'd end up liking it more, you know.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, when it came to this match in particular, I was more just focused on what's the story, what we're getting, and I'll just let it play out. And it's really refreshing to be able to watch wrestling like that, rather than being like, oh, I don't trust the people in charge of this company, so I'm gonna critique every single booking decision because I'm so frustrated. um, just now, said he feels like Sammy Guevara is going to win. I think, yeah, there's a potential for that, especially because he lost to Darby Allin on the pay per view, so he might get his win back over Darby Allin. But I feel like it's going to be Lance Archer in the final. I feel like they're not going to do Lance Archer versus Sammy Guevara just because there isn't really much story in that. There's not really much interest apart from the fact that you've got a size difference. But I would like to see Sammy Guevara versus Cody in the semi and then Cody go on to the final. I just purely because I'm almost certain that Archer's going to be in the final. If he's not, I'd be a bit disappointed. I feel like it won't be Sammy Guevara, and that's why I've kind of ruled him out from winning for me. But
No, that's
I,
a
I would be
yeah.
happy to be wrong. I'd like to see him as the first champion because he would make it in a similar way to someone like MGF, where they could just gloat about it forever. But I don't think it's going to happen personally.
No, I would agree with Gareth that it's not going to happen, but I really do like the pick. I like Sammy Guevara is probably a lot. I think for most people as well, like him and Darby Allin have been my new recent favorites in wrestling. Like period, like it's just both men have showed tremendous ability in a multitude of avenues in their craft. It's just amazing, and I can't wait to see more. But I think Sammy's been dealt a bad hand in regards to the tournament because I mean he's got Darby Allin, but then we've already had a bit of we've had a little bit of a story built up with Darby Allin and Cody. Given Darby Allin just sort of rejecting Cody's and like somewhat helping him towards the later end of losing a match and whatnot.
Yeah.
So perhaps there's that. It's very small, but at the end of the day, they do have a storied history as well. Given that they had a match months and months back, I want to say Fighter Fest or something or other like that. And so I think that's just a bigger match. But I am fed up with Sammy Guevara losing all the time. Because he seems like the perfect punch bag in just taking losses and losses and losses and losses, and that's all well and good. Because the thing is, he's got the ability just to keep being relevant regardless. He's in the inner circle and all that sort of stuff. So we're always going to see him, and that's always going to be an amazing thing. But it's just he's been dealt a bad hand because at the end of the day, if he beats Darby Allin, he's got Cody, and if he's got Cody, then he's got Archer, and like each and every one of them has a better case. Rather than just seeing a really talented guy get something good, it's like there's more of a kayfabe case for either one getting more forward in the tournament. But thank you ever so much just now, but for coming in and giving a load of your thoughts and whatnot. It's been amazing hearing from you in that realm. We're going to be calling it here. It's thank you ever so much for listening in or watching or all that good stuff. If you like what we do, then please consider subscribing, all that sort of stuff, notification bell, all that sort of stuff, because we schedule these beforehand, so you'll be let know as to when we are streaming, all that good stuff. And of course, if you want to follow either one of us, the links are just in the frame below us there, so please consider doing that if you're interested at all. But thank you ever so much for listening, / watching in, and hope to see you soon.
Yeah, see you soon.